So you may know that in my life I've written a fair amount about market history and biographies of people associated with stock market history. As we surround the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, I think it's important to recognize the overwhelming contribution that America has made to innovation and the material well-being not only of Americans, but people all over the world. Now, I'm not going to put too much time into this. I'm just going to hit a few highlights because you could talk about thousands of examples in so many categories. But simply said, if you went back to the beginning of the 19th century, at that point in time, capitalism was largely rooted more than any other place in Britain. And in that time, there were good things that happened. But as you move forward to the back of the 19th century and early into the 20th century, more and more the shifts start to come out of America, and more the breakthroughs are American. So if we're talking about 250 years, in the beginning of those 250 years, we're talking about Britain. As you move forward, it gets more and more with the American Industrial Revolution, which dwarfed the British Industrial Revolution, centered around the 1880s. The development of things that were machines, inventions, and techniques that made things cheaper and better and helped people. In the stock market, an interesting thing happened in 1912 that nobody thinks about. Before then, going back to British law and common law, stocks had to have what was called a par value, which I'm not going to take you into the details of it. It's kind of pointless. But in America, we maintained that in law, requiring a par value that was stated on the stock certificate that you always got when you bought a stock until the digital age. And that was the minimum amount that the stock could be sold for. In reality, it had nothing really to do with what the stock was worth or would be sold for. It's a legal requirement. But it confused people because it's on the stock certificate. It said par value, X, when the actual real value of the stock might be many times that. In 1912, America began a process state by state, starting with New York, of eliminating par value as a requirement. And that began a process where instead of thinking about the asset value of the stock, people began to think in the more modern way of what, and they don't think about it this way, but it ends up cumulatively being that way. What's the net present value of the future earning stream of the company in valuing the stock? From that, you got a tremendous boost in the stock market, not immediately, because that happens almost just before World War I starts. And that creates a certain amount of chaos, as obviously it would. But in the aftermath of that, you get a booming stock market in America. Now, that booming stock market in America is often criticized because it leads to the Great Depression. But I just want you to think through the innovative qualities in America. Things like the light bulb or the airplane are invented in America. Things like the Farmall tractor that revolutionized row crops and agriculture in America, developed, and around the world, developed in America. As you move forward in time, not all, radio wasn't invented in America. Almost co-invented in America, but not invented in America. But as you move forward in time, innovation after innovation after innovation comes from America, and great things helping people come from that. Whether it's the invention of the semiconductor or the laser, these are American. Whether it's duct tape. Now, mind you, are there innovations outside of America? Of course there are. how would we measure the scale of that? For example, the largest toy company in the world is Danish, which is, the company that invented and developed Legos. And that's good. But if you just look at the total contribution of innovation and great companies, America dominates. Let me put that acceleration from the 19th century to the 20th century into a different perspective for you. And almost no one seems to understand this. But if you look at the largest companies by region and globally, you see a really interesting thing that people don't understand. Now, again, if we go back to that 19th century, capitalism was based in Europe, predominantly Britain, and within Britain, Scotland and England predominantly. And then this acceleration happens. So you ask a question, you take all the European stocks and you rank them, and you say, what are the 25 largest? And then you take all the US stocks and you rank them by size and say, what are the 25 largest? If you look at the European stocks, not a one of them is younger than 50 years old. If you look at the 25 in the United States, 13 of them are less than 25 years old and 12 are older, not 25, 50 years old. 13 are younger than 50 years old and 12 are older. If you look globally at all of the companies that have market capitalizations over 200 billion US dollars, you only have a very small handful that are not based in America. All the rest are based in America. Why? Because whether it's Uber, the first company to do that and the globally dominant one, whether it's Amazon, you name it, almost all these things come from America. And not only do they benefit America by doing what they do in a never yet done way that once upon a time, a long time ago, when I was still young, it was often called this, but had a history before that called Yankee ingenuity, nowadays called entrepreneurialism, what I sometimes call crazy people with a crazy idea that sometimes works and changes the world. That's an American phenomenon. That's rare outside the United States. America should be proud that its capitalism has brought so much benefit to so many people, and not just in America, but all around the world as firms take what they developed in America and bring it out into places everywhere. So as we celebrate the 250th anniversary, I think it's also appropriate to be remembering and celebrating the success of American capitalism, the introduction that innovative companies in America have brought into the world to help consumers better, to make jobs work less tediously, and to improve life overall for all of us. Thank you much for listening to me. Have a good holiday. Hi, this is Ken Fisher. Subscribe to the Fisher Investment YouTube channel if you like what you've seen. Click the bell to be notified as soon as we publish new videos.